What was the best part for you?
So first, when I'm in a group of people, I'm typically either average or above average in height. All of our, I went to Prague last week, right? And I met with our development team. I've been working very closely with these guys for 7 years. I've never met them in person beyond the face on the screen. And I go and I meet them, and it's all like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you." Like,
How tall was the tallest one, Leron?
I'd say
About.
6'5".
Huh? 6'5"? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
So
it, Leron?
that was a wonderful experience. It was just very rejuvenating to be around those guys and feel their energy level and be able to pop into somebody's desk and say, "Hey, what about this? What about this?" Like, that's just not something that we've ever really done before. So that was a really wonderful experience.
Tina, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Good.
Ben, Tina would have to wheel heels to get up to the height of most of these guys.
Huh. That's a
Do
that's
that.
that's
Dude.
a that's a tall group. These days, by the way, that seems to be a trend, Chip. So let's not more so on the guys wearing the heels, but that's a whole other story.
What
So
did I miss for getting in late? Chip and heels or what?
No, 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 no.
no, no, not Chip and heels, but that's Chip and Dale, which is a whole nother
Oh,
thing. Um, all right, let's get into some other good news. Who's got some wins of the week? Anybody want to kick things off? Enrique, you always have exciting things there. Anything going on in your world?
I told you guys about the new customer last week. I did have something, but this vibe code has me upside down. I had to restructure everything and move to Azure, so it's been a nightmare. I'll try to remember what it was. There was one. It wasn't a major one, but there was something.
Are you doing vibe coding like on Foundry? Like what are you doing
So I
in
started on Lovable, as talked about last week, and
Yeah.
then their super base. I was too lazy to read, and I just went with theirs, but that limits use, and I had to, after I've developed 5 apps, I had to go in reverse and do everything manually to migrate to an independent database just for future flexibility. So, and I've learned that AI is not as smart as a stubborn Mexican because Cloud Code, Copilot, and Lovable's own AI said it wasn't possible. And I kept on telling Cloud Code, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And I finally figured out a way to do it. And even though they all told me it was impossible. So stubborn sometimes is better than AI.
Hmm. You're the Roger Bannister of AI, aren't you?
If you bully it enough, it'll give you whatever answer you want.
Well, I didn't get the answer. I got the result.
Got it. Well, other wins, is anybody else bullying Lovable or any of the AI platforms that you want to share?
Who's this? Who owns Figma? I just heard some things about it this
Well, in
morning.
public. They're public.
Okay. But like who started it? Totally independent or someone's project?
I think Leron started it, if I had to
I
guess.
knew that.
What, Figma?
Yeah.
Yeah, Figma's in for a world of hurt, in my opinion. But
Just because of AI, Leron, it's just, which is interesting, right? You wonder, we talked about this, Chip and I, a little bit about the hurting event potentially the PE firms are going to take from these AI, I'm sorry, these software investments, right? That can be replaced fairly easily.
you can just imagine, like, over at Anthropic, a bunch of guys were probably drinking beer at 4 p.m. and they're like, you know what would be awesome? Why don't we just try to like replace Figma? Like we use Figma all the time. Like let's just get that into Claude. And they're like, all right. And then by Friday at like 9 p.m., they have like this working thing. And then by Tuesday, product is like, holy crap, that's awesome. And then the next week, boom, that thing's in production and like 30 stocks in the stock market just go down by 25%.
And then the next day it's blocked by the government. And you know, there's always that fun fact too, right, Chip, that we talked about on the cyber call that you never know when your model that you just built your entire app on and betting your company on is we don't like that. We're gonna block it. So we always have that now to contend with.
Well, I still argue, as I did on the cyber call on Monday, that where we're headed is multiple local models, people running, back checking the each other's work, loop architecture, moving beyond just agent architecture, but to agentic loops that are self learning, self-reinforcing, self-improving, and passing tasks back and forth between the model that's most appropriate to fill them. And I think, in a year's time, this is going to be the equivalent of the client server to SaaS revolution, except kind of in reverse.
It, it sounds like token ring to me, Chip.
Well, you can think of it that way, sort of visually, I guess. But um, yeah, that's where we're headed. I mean, I use the term on, and I hopefully everybody is familiar with this terminology, but there's a difference between training and inference. And inference is what we all do day to day when we're asking questions of the model or asking it to develop code or diagrams to replace Figma or whatever else. And that is going to increasingly going to move to the local side, and the data center stuff is going to be training. Um, so
It's
that
interesting.
really changes the compute needs of the hyperscalers over time.
Well, it's interesting. Phyllis said she's gotten a lot of research recently, or she was reading in that art some article, or she had some research that the enterprises are pulling their models back in house. Um, and if that's the case, Chip, does that potentially impact the valuations of some of these companies if you start to see this come back in house?
Um, I don't know the answer to that. I have a similar thesis that I think it could, that the frontier model companies that are going public or have gone public, that in the long run it could pull back their valuations. But there's no way to account for the ongoing pace, and increase in pace. Like we don't have a linear increase in the pace of model training and how models are evolving. We have an exponential increase, and I don't know where that curve flattens out. Liron follows this stuff as closely or more than anyone that I know. So, it's a good question to ask him as well.
So I recently, in case you guys don't know, right, OpenClaw was all the rage a while ago. OpenClaw has since been superseded by the Hermes agent as the number one agent that is out there, and I wanted to kick the tires on it. And at first, I started shopping around for, hey, like I need a new graphics card. Let's see what this looks like. And then I started researching it, right? But the thing with technology is you're going to spend 2 grand on a graphics card, and in a year, that thing is going to be a 1990 Camry, which is like a fine car, but it's still kind of out of date. So then I did some additional research and basically went the open router approach because which is an AI gateway that allows you to access kind of anything you want. But one of the things that I realized when I was doing this is I don't need Opus 4.8 or Fable for 90 to 95% of what it is that I'm doing. I can get away with a much smaller, cheaper model for running what it is I'm looking um, to do in-house. So that's kind of where I've started going, but it is an ongoing thing where, like, right now, I am installing something on my computer that is going to run a local model, and maybe at that point, I do need to upgrade. So I think this entire thing is really kind of being figured out right now as we speak.
Hmm,
Um,
interesting.
Last thing I want to mention is if you guys do keep track of this stuff, GLM 5.2 just came out, and that is an open source model that is nearly as good as GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8. And that is a model that you can, in theory, install locally and have near frontier model performance locally, right? You need to have the hardware to be able to run it locally, but that is a potential game changer.
That's really interesting. Really, really fascinating stuff. I mean, it, Yeah, I mean, we could have all sorts of predictions here, but I mean, if you're an enterprise, it's certainly worth, I can't believe that isn't a conversation being had, Chip, for, not putting our stuff on the internet and, you know, putting,
I think it's being had all over the enterprise. It's
yeah,
certainly being had within the enterprise where I currently work. Um, so I had just before this call, had a long show and tell discussion on with one of our weekly um, teams that is experimenting with frontier stuff. Frontier meaning not frontier models, but cutting edge of how we should be using AI in the workplace. And we definitely have teams that are taking advantage of local models to keep our data, our corporate data, as private as possible,
yeah,
and
yeah,
doing it very successfully.
really, really fascinating stuff. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Let's say look down the list here.
Security wins of the week, customer wins of the week, employee wins of the week. And
Transmission wins of the week if you're up in, the Great White Northwest with Tina. Any drag racing we need to know about, Tina? Or, you know, chassis redos, any important things? Just
I think
let
I think she wants to take Leron's 1980 Camry or 1990 Camry. Her eyes sparkled when you said that.
But does it have massage seats?
no, just velour.
what kind of seats?
Massage, massage.
Oh,
Uh,
Too funny. All right, let's get on into it here. Let me share out my screen.
Robin.
And
I love Tobin's comment, the trash 80. That was
Oh,
my
that was the last good product that was out there. I
that was
remember I wrote my first code on that. It was 10
me.
lines long. I hit enter and it said out of memory. It was like, yes.
Tobin, so my first computer was a trash 80 and my storage was a cassette deck.
Yes.
And I would
Yes.
I would load my programs by looking at the count meter on the cassette deck. From here to here I've got this code, from here to there I've got that code. It was pretty wild. It
Yep.
got
It
very
was
good at
crazy.
like nailing the stop going fast forward.
Yeah, exactly.
all right. Good. All right. So, few things in the news. Let's start off with talked a little bit about this chip on the cyber call. I thought it was just relevant to bring up how um these VPN type um and firewall type 0 days or CVEs morph into more than just, vulnerabilities that are getting exploited in this particular case. And this is a hats off or kudos to Corey Clark, who had to endure about, I don't know if you guys recall, about 8 months ago or 6 months ago. I forget the date chip, but it was, Sonic Wall was Sonic Walls were getting hammered again, and they're like, oh, Sonic Wall must have a 0 day and all this stuff. And then he was put himself out there and he's like, no, we don't. We definitely don't have another 0 day. Here's what I'm seeing, and here's what happened here at a high level with this initial VPN and firewalls that were getting exploited through a vulnerability. There was a credential dump, a massive credential dump, which then obviously made its way on the dark web and got resold. And as Chris Lair was pointing out, an incident response firm from he was sharing, he's with a company called Serenity Cyber. He's like, look, time and time again, we find people apply a patch chip, but don't necessarily go through the whole litany of instructions, which is rotate credentials or do something with LDAP that Corey was indicating, and on and on and on. That it's not just apply a patch. Often there's more to it than that. And lo and behold, what's old is new, and this is now these Fortinet devices are being exploited, not because there's a vulnerability, but because the credentials are just being reused and people have not changed out their creds. So, any thoughts on that, Chip? And, anybody running Fortinet, just be aware. Or if you have clients or prospects that you once talked to that might have Fortinet, certainly something interesting you might want to bring up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my primary thought is that when I first saw this story hit last week, I was like, oh gosh, here we go again. And then you start reading into the details and you realize, exactly what you just stated, Andrew, that the the real basis of the vulnerability is just lack of fundamental security hygiene that we all should be practicing.
Hmm.
And if you would do those things, you wouldn't be exposed to this particular kind um, of vulnerability and flaw. And Corey pointed this out. I don't know if you remember, but Corey went through with us, and it was great to kind of share his journey and SonicWall's journey. He went through a cycle over about 6 weeks where it was SonicWall, then it was WatchGuard, then it was Fortinet, then it was Palo Alto. Like it was the media was bouncing around, hitting everybody. And at one point, he came back and said, "Well, it's our turn again, but it's the same story. If people would just actually update the patches that we send them and practice the security hygiene best practices that we recommend, they wouldn't have any of these problems."
Yep,
So, it still always comes down to people managing their processes and their devices and paying attention to scams and phishing, and it's still the human in the loop part that we just don't solve.
for sure. By the way, does anybody out there run Ubiquity? Just give me if you could come off mute or so there's something in
We
chat.
have we have certain offices that do. I posted the link or a post yesterday on it on their.
Okay. Are you guys aware of it? It sounds like
Yes,
you are, Enrique. Tobin,
yes.
are you aware? Tobin?
I did
Did
a beautiful LinkedIn post on it.
you? Hold on, let me just find it real quick for you. Ubiquity. Ah, I hate this new version of Chrome that goes right to AI. Bear with me, guys and gals. So this is the latest one, Tobin, and I'll put it in chat for you that there's currently exploited in the wild. And so I'm putting it in there for you. So if you have any of these devices,
I was hoping for no bad news for me today, but it's okay, Andrew.
we're here not to give bad news, but more so to keep everybody apprised of the fun things going on. All right. So moving on. All right. So we talked about this. So Chip, one of the things that I started to think about, and I wrote my newsletter on this week. I'll just give you guys a heads up. So I started to think about the following. Like everybody's vibe coding and connecting, we talked about, I think I shared with everybody at one point the security research guy that found it was in Wired magazine. Did I show all you that? There are 5,000 vibe coded. Did I show you guys that just real quick? This story? Yes, no?
Yep.
Okay.
I found it
So,
on
so
Lovable.
yeah, so these 5,000 instances across Lovable, Replit, et cetera, and people, taking Claude code and Vibe code, and we know what's going on. So I started to think, Chip, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What happens when your client calls you up and says, hey, we just got popped? Um, and we developed this dashboard, this app, whatever, connected it to our databases, and there was a vulnerability. Threat actor pops it. Now the environment is ransomed, and the client says, "Hey, so we're gonna call up, you know, our breach counsel and or cyber insurance and get them involved." Well, what I found was pretty alarming. And what I found was an article, which I'll kind of go through with you all here, by Gallagher, which is a huge reinsurer. You know, the reinsurers, by the way, are really what matters when it comes to insurance. I'm not an insurance expert by any means, but basically what happens at a high level, and any out there that know more than me, please keep me honest here, but you obviously have, you know, the brokers and you know, obviously the insurance companies like Chubb and Travelers and all these, but then they all have what are called reinsurers, the insurers that insure the actual insurance companies. And those are the ones that are the most important because when they don't like something, they're the ones that impact the downstream model because they're not willing to write the risk to the actual insurance companies, and therefore then the obviously the product can't make it to market. Does that high level make jive with you so far, Chip, on what I'm trying to say?
Yep, it does.
Okay, so here's what I found, what was publicly available, and and you know I wrote the newsletter. I can put it in there for you, but I'll kind of walk you guys through this article by Gallagher, and they worked with an organization. I forget the name of it. I'll come back and show you. Test Testudo, which looks at claims and payouts and lawsuits and things of that nature. So we'll get into that. But by and large, here's what's going to happen on the margin, or what is happening on the margin when you say, "Hey, I got popped," and they track it back to something that you did with AI. And they say, so they may unknowingly be exposing themselves to a class of AI liabilities that traditional insurance may not fully recognize or respond to. And this is the really important point here. Courts and regulators are often treating these failures as responsibility of the AI deployer, not the technology vendor. And that is a critical thing, as we're going to see when it comes to everything from your tech E&O to your limitations of liability and all these other things that often are covered if you have the right type of insurance. So the article goes on, and I think they do a really good job. And of course, I'll share the PDF article with you momentarily. One thing I thought that was they did a really nice job in this article of just kind of, first of all, classifying how the insurance company looks at the models, right? They basically look at them in these categorized ways. Is it ML? Is it, you know, natural language, or is it, you know, autonomous? So that's how they first of all classify the differences of the models. Next, then they talk about this the key if it'd be great if I could actually type correctly, Chip. The key weaknesses insurances have on their radar. So things that they're going to be like looking for right away in, you know, if, for example, the breach attorney gets assigned, the breach attorney says, "Hey, we're going to bring in XYZ in, IR firm and forensic firm," what's on their kind of radar for, you know, things that are going to be immediately no bueno, like, hey, this is giving us indications that, you know, this is something that we're going to just say absolutely excluded. So these are some of the areas that they're watching. Um, the lawsuits, this is where that third party that I mentioned that I couldn't pronounce them very well. This is the staggering thing, and it's kind of it's kind of like an oxymoron. And what I mean by that is, well, on one hand, insurance makes decisions based on data, right? The more data sets, right, they have, their actuaries can actually make sound decisions on, are we willing to insure this because we can make money on it? Well, interestingly, What has gone through the roof are the lawsuits. Just a touch. And in fact, let me jump back to that slide in a second. The visual speaks for itself on AI litigation. Like literally, it's like the invoice of time to exploit that we've been looking at, Chip, on vulnerabilities. It's the complete inverse of that. And you'd be cool to maybe put those dot plots
Yeah.
together. But it's the exact opposite chart. So, 1,000% growth literally in about 4 years of lawsuits. Um, and they cluster these into these categories, right? And anyway, they kind of show here that companies around the globe are, identifying these risks in AI adoption and what the claim, lawsuits are about.
Can you go back to that for a second, Andrew?
Yeah, for sure.
The patent infringement claim one I find really interesting. I mean, almost 12% of cases are people who are challenging how the AI systems are built.
Well, I think it's probably if we dug into it, Chip, this is just hypothetical, is that it's, you know, I'm going to give a poor analogy. When like the music industry started suing all of the um, AI models for taking their information, right? Probably the same thing, like whether it's a software product, whether it's right, like that's our AI. I'm sorry, that's our IP that you're reproducing in your model.
So
So
that's implying that there's a lot of cases between either frontier or secondary model providers that are suing each other over how the model is derived and the training data. And I mean, there's been accusations that, you know, even the US top three frontier models have stolen training data from Chinese models and back and forth. Like
eh,
it, it sounds like that's what you're talking about. I'm just surprised that the volume that's the highest volume of
I,
these three call outs.
I'm not. I'm more suggesting like the cases where whether it's books or music or applications or things that Chip wrote this.
Yeah, that's the copyright claim. That's the next batch
I'm
right
sorry.
below.
Oh, I see. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, yeah. Fair, fair, fair.
Anyway, that was a little segue that I hope it didn't throw you off.
No, that's okay. No, not at all. Anybody have any thoughts on this so far? I think the big thing that I'm taking away, and again, like I said, I'll restate, not an expert on this, but part of your conversation, again, is never, I don't like to be Dr. No as an advisor, like as you guys are being AI advisors, be CISO advisors, and et cetera. But one thing, when you go in and talk to your client about what they're trying to accomplish, what business objective they're trying to accomplish with AI, and they're all excited, they just got all Claude coded up or whatever model is just maybe ask them like, hey, I'm just curious, like, have you considered what is going to be covered and what isn't covered if something goes wrong, right? Let's, not to throw water on your fire, but like, have you talked to your cyber provider about this? Like that you're doing this, and if something goes wrong, is it going to be covered? My guess is none of them have, or very few have.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two none of them have, or very few have. The first is very few people talk to their insurance provider about it. And the second is, I would sincerely doubt that, the insurance industry is going to cover somebody who vibe codes up a product, doesn't do a fundamental security architecture review or any kind of security architecture review. The product winds up exposing customer data, other data that leads to a lawsuit. I don't see how that gets covered by an insurance company.
I agree. And again, look at your questionnaire, right? If your questionnaire, like it's almost like think about it like if your questionnaire for your home didn't have anything about floods, right? Chances are if you have a flood and you didn't fill out anything about floods and you're where you sit near the water, the insurance companies will go, yeah, sure, we'll cover it. That's not how it works. They're going to ask questions about how close are you to the water? What types of things do you have around your home? Is it raised? Yada, yada, yada. And so we get into that in this graph coming up here, Chip, in a second. But this is, I highlight this. This is interesting. Like significant gaps remain unaddressed. For example, a problem caused by a customer-facing chatbot might trigger a liability claim, whereas an AI-assisted cyber attack trigger might be a cyber insurance, trigger a cyber insurance policy. Others might, be E&O. Um, and so they talk about, things that you'd probably need a dedicated insurance product for. Um, so again, what I find fascinating about it is how, you know, Gallagher did a pretty good job digging into the data, but there's no, as you can see here, Chip and everybody, there's no real clear cut what's included and what's not included. There's certainly a lot of, I'm sorry, there's certainly a lot of what isn't included, and there's some opaque on partially. Um, but there's not a lot of check boxes if you take a look here.
I think I
Um,
see two
yeah,
and
yeah,
one with an asterisk.
yeah. And I forget what that was, but I can dig into the article and show you all. So, and by the way, I'm at an event right now. I'm in Nashville at the Roost event, and when I was one of my good friends, he's got a good MSP, decent, mature, very mature, and he comes up to me, he's like, "I hate you." I go, "Why?" He goes, "I read your newsletter today." He goes, "We're vibe coding the crap out of this, that, and the other." And he goes, "I didn't even think about the cyber insurance side of this." So, um, again, and Enrique, thanks for your comments in the LinkedIn as well. I think more so, like I said, Chip, more than anything, I just wanted people to start thinking about it because at the end of the day, this is our ultimate backdrop when things hit the fan, typically in a cyber incident, if we have cyber insurance, take AI out of the picture, that's a mitigating control, right? We've got a backdrop if something happens. So yeah, Enrique.
So what do you think ourselves right now? You're saying Chip mentioned go after the insurance and stuff. We never like to ask because we don't want to hear the wrong answer. So as an MSP using AI tools, what are your thoughts on that?
In what regard? That's a broad question. What do you mean?
And errors and omissions and different kind of things that an underwriter might say we weren't contemplating that.
I don't know about you, but I would want to know than not know. It is certainly something I wouldn't want to like. God forbid. Let's just say, for example, Enrique, the worst case happens, right? You vibe code something, threat actor gets into all your whether it's an IT glue, whatever it is that this is connected to. Now they've got,
Passwords or
accesses or whatever. I'd want to know, like, because if you don't, you've literally just bet your business. And again, remember, and Eric Tiltz talks about this a lot, the attorney who covers like 500 plus MSPs. He talks about this a lot. And I'll give the simplest example of this. When MSPs in the right coming out of the pandemic, when all the insurance questionnaires just got voluminous and the customer would come to the MSP and go, "Hey, help fill this out." And the MSPs were help filling it out. Well, if there's not anything in your, statements of work that, right, you have put that it's a service you're offering the client, your limitations of liability just went out the door. So you've literally just bet your business on helping somebody fill out a cyber insurance questionnaire. So that's what I'd want to personally know here. Did I just bet my entire business on
Yeah.
something?
Enrique, I would, using you as an example because you volunteered earlier that you've been banging around with, first Lovable and then other vibe coding platforms and working with Claude to talk it into finally doing what you want. I would go to your cyber insurance provider and explicitly tell them, look, we're writing custom solutions, for our customers for their specific use cases. And I want you to tell me what is your expectation for how we're going to do security architecture review before we even build code, and after we produce a product and put it in a client's hands. I would get them to give you the explicit checklist of what they expect to see for you to be covered and
But
expect
I
them to raise
definitely,
your premium.
I'll do. So this is a totally separate entity that I'm using, but I'm definitely going to take that homework and come back to the group and report what I find because I think it's something interesting. But I wasn't even going so much on that side project I have right now. I was more going ourselves as an MSP using
no, we get you.
just directly in our day-to-day operation.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take that project and get back with you on that chip in the group.
Yeah, I think both are great questions. But again, if you're doing anything for your customer, boy, it better be in your statements of work because oh, we were helping out a client and we started banging around and doing something on their, helping them develop an app and an agent or whatever. Like I said, it's the same equivalent to if it's not written, you're literally betting your business on it because your
Yeah.
limitations and liability are out the window.
And it's interesting, Eric, Andrew, that you brought up Eric because I was talking to him the other day, and he said that he's now putting AI clauses in his MSP's MSAs, and he's also developing specific AI scope of works because of exactly what you said, and with the insurance thing. So,
Yeah.
um,
You know what's funny about this, Tobin, and funny air quotes, not funny about this is, remember I don't know, in the early 2020 or late 2019's area, like people are like, well, that we're really serious about security. They're like, well, we're creating a separate company because our MSSP, we don't want any liability and to our MSP. Do you remember that vaguely? That people were,
oh, absolutely.
yeah,
They were like, it was almost like shell companies in the old
yeah,
Miami Vice days.
yeah. Well, I mean, this that pales in comparison. Like I would be spinning up a separate company if I was doing any of this for another customer. This would not be part of my MSP proper. I would be, I have this, new co that does this work and, protects my core business part and parcel out of that. So I don't know, Chip, would you if you decided to do it, you still had your MSP, you wanted to do this, would you create a separate entity to
Yes, not a subsidiary, a completely separate
yeah,
entity.
for sure.
Um, and I would be, I would design service agreements that lay as much of the responsibility and the liability on the customer as possible and let them know explicitly that, we're working on the bleeding edge of technology here. And, we'll use commercially reasonable best practices to provide safety. But with the pace of change of what that looks like, what is a best practice today, which a different AI threat vector can hop over tomorrow, like it's going to be very hard to keep up with that. The um, ultimate piece of the puzzle here that we haven't unraveled, and when I say we, I mean like the entire community, not just this discussion, is you can't sue an AI.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem. So where's the liability chain end? And
Well,
there are interesting developments here because Argentina has just, in the past month, given AI the essentially personhood, allowing AIs to be corporate entities and participate in the economy independently, have bank accounts. So, there this is it's a new evolution of legal theory that hasn't been tested yet. I think either Enrique or Ben, I'm not sure whose hand went up first. One of them's going to tell us that you can sue an AI model. It's Ben first, Enrique. Is that what you're saying?
You
All
go
right,
ahead,
Ben.
Enrique.
Ben, go
You go
ahead.
ahead. You can go in front of me.
Well, I was just gonna say you could sue anyone. I mean,
Well,
but
and you can sue
the
anyone.
founder of the AI, whoever does it. But I mean, obviously their language probably says they could come and kill me and my dog and my mom and my dad, and we'll
So
be
you're saying
okay.
you could sue Anthropic or you could sue OpenAI,
Without a
Yeah, good
doubt.
luck,
but you
right?
can't sue a model. You can't
Correct.
sue GPT-5, and you can't sue, um, you know, take your pick.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that, I think as software companies that are encouraging their employees to use AI assisted coding, I, I I guess I would want you to define, what's the difference between somebody that's vibe coding almost all the time and a bigger software company that's employing a bunch of essentially, vibe coders. So I mean, like, how much more secure are you with something that is fully vibe coded versus something that's mostly vibe coded?
Who's the question for, Ben?
Anybody, really. I mean, I guess any of the, I know we use a little bit of that here, I mean, with some of our internal tools, but I mean, like, does that put us in that the same boat as someone that just vibe codes for a living?
I think
Um, I mean, in a sense, I think that professional software engineering teams have a greater responsibility to do the security architecture correctly, even when they're using AI. But I don't think of that as vibe coding. Like, the we'll stick to SaaS Alerts for a second. Liron and the SaaS Alerts engineering team use AI extensively, AI coding systems extensively. I don't think of that as vibe coding. Using a platform that allows you to prompt your way into a fully automated deployment of, myapplication.lovable.com,
Hmm.
uh, that's vibe coding. And I think they're two very, very different things. I do think there should be some responsibility, and again, this is untested legal theory, on the part of a platform that allows you to just prompt your way to a live app with live data, and it's deploying it for you and does no
Yeah.
security checks. And we've seen that, so far in this journey. I think that's getting better. Um, but there's just a lot of untested, you know, there's no case law and untested legal theory on who's really responsible for what.
I
Yeah, I guess the question would be, at what point does someone turn from AI assisted or turn from a vibe coder into an AI assisted coder?
to me it's like handing nuclear theory that you can do big scary things with to physicists, which are kind of like engineers and developers, because they kind of can look at the thing and they can tell you whether or not it's dangerous, it's a good idea or a bad idea, versus handing it to a person that doesn't understand this stuff and they could end up causing kind of a lot of damage. So when engineers and developer types, right, when this whole thing started, the feedback was, hey, the code quality is crap. That was 18 months ago. Now it's like, wow, the code quality is really good. I just kind of have to
Yeah.
steer it in a particular way, but they still have that inherent skill set to evaluate the code quality where most people can't and are not, they don't know to do that, right? And something I've said before is if you go into GitHub and you type in .env, which is typically where you store files locally,
Yeah.
that could never make it anywhere public, but the agent itself is not necessarily trained to not include that. And so you can go there and you can now get people's like Anthropic API tokens and all sorts of things. But a developer, kind of like the nuclear physicist or a physicist, they're gonna have a lot more domain expertise, knowledge, and experience and understand what's dangerous versus not dangerous.
Well, and I guess in a world where we expect developers to be 10x more efficient with AI, do you save time if they have to go and review each thing line by line and make corrections or anything? I mean, how much of a time saver, how much more efficient are they really being?
That's exactly
Versus, are we trusting them to go, hey, they've done it right in the past. I'm going to assume the AI didn't screw me over here.
that's exactly the situation that we're in now. We have AI code reviews, and those reduce, right, the amount, because the sheer volume of code has gone up by
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 10x. And the bottleneck was our human code reviewers. So what did we do? We added AI code review. But how do you teach AI code review? The AI code review reviews the code, and then a human reviews the AI code review and says, hey, this was really good. Keep doing this over here. You got this wrong over here. And then we repeat, but we always have a human in the loop that is reviewing the AI code review in order to go faster. But now that creates a secondary bottleneck of our QA team now has 10 times more work to do. Now they need to figure out how to do this on their side as well.
Who watches the watchers?
So real quick, Chip, Ron says, has SaaS Alerts product team thought through adding shadow AI detection, management, blocking? This is a huge gap area currently for most companies I work with.
I don't know the answer to that actually, Andrew. Maybe Leron knows the answer to that.
I don't
But
think
I don't.
based on the current infrastructure, how you're set up, you could do that because the only way to really surface it is via DNS. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
you
mean,
could surface what they're connecting to, but not the actual consumption or use
what?
on the shadow AI.
Yeah, I don't think he's asking about use. I think he's asking more about, being able to block, manage.
DNS.
I mean, the way that I think about it is you would need to have a local agent on the machine that is monitoring all the outbound requests, inbound requests, and then saying something like, let's say we're only authorized to use Claude, and somebody, say Ben Jones, is using ChatGPT left and right on his work machine, then like, does that product exist today?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
The
both CrowdStrike, SentinelOne have it at the endpoint. They're doing it today.
the
But
interesting
Advanced.
thing is Microsoft just added shadow AI to their frontier. So I haven't tested it yet. One of my AI team members just brought it up today, but I'll definitely test it and let you know. But it just appeared in Frontier, within the last few days.
yeah. And I'm sure Defender Enterprise, that their, premier product, endpoint product has it as well. So, all right. All right. So moving on, where are we here? Okay. So, where the gaps currently live. So, although no standard cyber policy exists, most provide coverage for first-party risks such as business interruption via ransomware and third party, which we know. Critical gaps emerge when other liabilities related to Gen AI arise, such as bodily injury, property damage, IP infringement, copyright infringement, defamation, hallucinations. Not that AI would ever do that, leading to financial loss or data disclosure via outputs. And I think that last part is literally the piece where you're going to see, right? I arguably for an MSP's customer, that's going to be most of the claims, right? In terms of, you know, data that got compromised and, poor security hygiene and et cetera. So
Yeah, I think that's where the rubber meets the road. Certainly not physical bodily harm from from the result of an AI telling you to jump off a bridge and you'll be fine. I don't think. Hopefully, that will never, turn into being AI being blamed for stupid physical behavior. But that last line, yeah, I think that's
that
where it's going to hit.
that's where I think that's where it hits and mostly hits, right, Chip? I mean, that's where company's going to call your client's going to call you up and go, yeah, we got a threat actor on our network, or you see it in your threat detection and they've absolutely exfilled whatever. And the insurance company's going to go, well, good luck to you. So here's Tech E&O Fumble is the purpose-built product for suppliers of technology covering only third-party liability. If an organization does not supply technology, services, or products to others, this specific form of coverage is inappropriate for the risk profile. It does not cover, again, here's where goes through this. So it's basically calling out over and over that there's a gap in this area here, and in whatever piece of your policy, there's a gap there. It's not going to get, oh, can we use our tech E&O? Nope. Can we use our cyber? No. I think that's what they're trying to say over and over here.
Yeah, and the gap is that they're talking about earlier in the article, Andrew, you referenced the term deployer of
Yes.
versus supplier. Well,
Yep.
OpenAI is the supplier, and when you are
Supplier
using it to create something, you're the deployer.
or your
And
client
what's that?
or your client.
Or your client, but your client could be consuming what you as a deployer have created using the supplier's tool.
And
And
now this is the question, no, not throwing shade at and what I'm about to say. So just don't shoot the messenger. I don't know, I hear a lot about like a HATS AI or a Synthrio. Pick your poison. But now all of a sudden, right, are you the deployer? Probably, right, Chip? You're the one taking this tool, deploying agents to your client. That's where, again, I highly encourage you all to look into this. Are you quote unquote potentially betting your business on something that is not in your scope of work?
I already emailed my attorney to ask him, we need to review this.
Yeah. And again, everybody on this call, please, I'm not trying to stir everybody up. I'm just trying to more provide an area that I saw that I'm concerned that there could be some gaps here for you that I'd like you to clarify with your insurance companies, your attorneys, and before we go much further.
Andrew, they didn't hire you as a lobbyist, did they? The insurance
No, I don't
company.
think they'd like me. Oh, well, the insurance companies might, but um, here's the, general, Gen AI exposure that again, was going to clue a an insurance, anybody the insurance carriers hire, the breach coach hires, that's going to figure this out pretty darn quick. And they give examples, real world use cases. And I'll close with this, just a few real world use cases where things just completely got shut down of companies that we know about, like Zillow, right? That that no, if you kind of just, I don't have to read it for you, I'll put it up there for just a minute for you to take a look at. But you know, um, uh, now, division of 2,000 employees got laid off, stock plummeted, blah 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 blah. Litigation's ongoing. My guess is, right. You could call this business interruption. You could call all these things, but my suspicion is uh, there's a big insurance company here. I'm I'm gonna bet my money on the insurance company winning this one.
winning this one by saying, "Hey, we're not covering any of this."
Yeah,
Um,
you
but
got this on your own. We're not.
but I just wonder, with class action lawsuits filed, are they really going to get traction? Like, who is actually harmed by Zillow, which everybody knows, like, or everybody, I think would think everybody should know, Zillow is not the final arbiter of a home's value at all. It's got competing platforms, you got live realtors, you got market data, when you actually want to sell your house locally. Like, man, if I'm on that jury, I'm not giving anybody any money. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's just it, right? Here's another one on, and what you notice here, Chip, is what do insurance companies love to do, right? Prolong the court case. They got an army of attorneys, right? Well, so do these big companies, but at some point, right, they're gonna hold out, and it's more you have to prove that, you know, there was quote unquote coverage. It's way harder, I think, in this case to prove we had coverage than the insurance companies to go, we we haven't, we didn't cover this. We didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, I mean, I see this if we're picking these apart differently, I see this one differently because here you have real harm to individuals. Um, and the system was responsible for that harm. And since you can't sue the system, you sue the company.
Yeah. Yeah. But we wonder, will the insurance company put it on? Yeah, we're covered. Yes, you're our client, Humana, Cigna, whoever,
Yep.
but this is on you to take care of, not us.
That's no settlement still as of late 2025. So this is still ongoing.
Yes.
That'd be an interesting one to follow.
Yep. That's the fun I have today for everybody, Chip.
Well, that was quite the interesting recap of your post, your article. I don't know, a lot to think about there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what we're here for, right? We're trying to get ahead of things before, we get, oh, hey, this bad thing happened. Um, Trying to always add value. So that's my recap, Chip. And
Are
I'm
we going to start seeing at conferences now sessions on this
already
particular
have
topic?
already
Yeah.
have Melissa Ventrone on this, who will be at Write a Boom, who's one of the best in the business. Yes. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it queued up for Write a Boom already. So working on it as we speak.
Sneak peek
Great,
here.
great comment from Justin in the chat.
Which was, where are we here?
Is AI really solving problems or just creating more chaos? I think it's solving older problems, Justin, but it's creating chaos in areas where people never thought there were going to be problems that needed to be solved, at least legally and socially and politically and otherwise. So,
I think, I was talking to some folks here about, there's research out there about AI and the dopamine hit. It's very similar, right, to social platforms in the sense, Chip, is it's exciting, right? Ben, tell me it's not exciting to, vibe code something to life, right? You get a hit from that.
Yeah. I
So
spent
there's
many hours and I
definitely,
hooked Enrique too, so I'm kind of like an enabler.
right. So there's this
Ben,
hit.
you're a pusher.
Yeah. Yeah, he's right.
I
Right.
need to be making commission or something. Come on.
Hey, I spent $2,500 already, Ben, so you would have gotten a good chunk there.
Damn, I'm in the wrong business.
All right, guys, gals,
See you
have an
next week,
awesome week.
everybody.
Take care
Stay
all.
Hi
safe.
guys.